We know things are bad, worse than bad. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Stephen James Experience. I'm Stephen James, the voice you know and love here on messinradio.com. This is airing Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. So if you're listening right now, this is me. Thank you. I'll thank Steve, myself, for kicking it to myself, but that's neither here nor there. In my career, I've been blessed to work with talented and passionate people throughout, and my guest today is perhaps one of the most talented and the most passionate people that I've ever met. Of course, I'm talking about director, jack of all visual trades, and someone who I would like to consider a friend, Mr. Zane Decker. Welcome.
Thank you for that intro. Those kind words really mean a lot to me coming from someone like you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We work in a business, the business of professional wrestling, where the brotherhood is something that's very important, and I found in you a brother who I can feel we work very well together. It's something that's fantastic. Where did the interest in wrestling come from? Is it something that you always loved, or is it something that you kind of developed over time?
Oh, man, well, the whole story with how I got into wrestling was my mom says that she would just have me crying when I was like 1 or 2. I just would not stop crying. And she put on like Monday Night Raw, and then I would stop crying. So the whole gimmick here is that basically it would like put me to sleep, kinda, which I find ironic,
hilarious.
But I still put on wrestling to go to bed. Yeah. I'll put on old, what the neon sign, like 93 to like 94. Those years will literally put me to sleep, and it still happens like that. So it's really escalated from like going to when I was 2 years old. I went to the whole first ever WrestleMania fan access. In
WrestleMania
New York,
10.
WrestleMania 10, man. I got a WrestleMania 10 hat signed by Bam Bam Bigelow. I got pictures with the head shrinkers with my mom. She was mortified. Her eyes are like white. She's like freaking out. Scott Hall.
My best friend's father, I think I told you this, my best friend's father did the T-shirts
yes.
for WrestleMania 10, and they were at FanFest too. Razor Ramon, Scott Hall was completely sunburned.
Yeah, he was really red.
I
wanted to recreate that photo if I ever get the chance to meet him again. I just need my dad to hold me up, and then I'm going to kind of be like trying to touch his shirt. And he kind of looks like, what is this kid doing?
This kid got boogers on his hand or something?
Exactly.
So you mentioned Scott Hall. Who are some of your favorite wrestlers? Like growing up, who did you gravitate towards?
Well, my all-time favorite is Bret Hart. Got my Bret Hart ink on my left leg.
It's the Hitman logo, right?
It's basically a portrait of Bret, but it's all in just a skeleton form with him wearing a leather jacket with some other lyrics from a song I have. So I got that done while I was away in Australia. But besides Bret, Shawn Michaels and Owen Hart, I think I grew more of a love for as I got a little bit older. I hated Owen growing up because he was such a prick to Bret, and I loved Bret. But now looking back, I just loved Owen because
Bret
he was
loved him so much too.
You just never hear a bad thing about the guy, And I always thought, if I ever have a son, I might name him after Owen. But as I got a little bit older, Jeff Hardy was who I used to I used to take my baseball socks and I'd cut holes in them and then I'd slip them through, and I always wanted to be Jeff, and my best friend was always Matt.
That's a good friendship.
Well, how come I have to be Matt? He's lame. And
he didn't want to be Matt.
He wanted to be Jeff, but I always said, well, dude, you're older than me. He was like older by like 6 months, and he was bigger. And I was like, well, you kind of have to be, because he's the big brother. And I'm like smaller, and I'm littler.
Way to think on your feet. You're I got to think of something. I was the same way. I enjoyed Matt Hardy more because
really?
I liked less flips, more like action, more powerhouse.
More Matt wrestling.
Yeah. And then
no pun intended.
And then once he did the Matt Hardy version 1, and he had the old Windows Media Player Titantron, I was sold. And now with Woken / Broken.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah,
he's absolutely
his
brilliant.
broken brilliance. Yes, wonderful.
Yeah, he's great. But yeah, that was good. Those are good times on the trampoline. Setting up the.
So you were a backyard quote unquote wrestler too?
Well, I wouldn't consider it backyarder. It was more like you're 12 and 13, and I had a video camera, and I loved wrestling, and I also loved to film stuff. So I would always set the camera up and have two of my friends be doing commentary off camera. No microphones,
That's
just
awesome.
off camera. I had the entranceway that was made out of the old play set when I was like really little. So we had like a shower curtain spray painted with the Trampoline Federation emblem on it,
Yeah.
and then cut down. And then we took an old slide to make an entranceway. So you'd walk down the slide,
walk
but it was
down the slide?
but the slide wasn't like up. It was just on the ground. We broke it.
So it was almost like a ramp.
It was literally a ramp. And then we had the netting around the trampoline that I tied ropes to. So it was you had some give, so you could really work the ropes.
And where was this? Where did you grow up?
Jackson, New Jersey.
Jackson, New Jersey, for those of you who don't know, home of Six Flags.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do that when I grew up and doing that kind of stuff, I lived in Brooklyn. There's not a whole lot of backyard or space. So what we would do is me and my friends would take all of the mattresses in somebody's house and put them in the living room, and we would wrestle like that. We would use chairs as the posts. We never had any ropes. We would just pretend they were ropes.
I did something similar like that with couches. So when I was little, when I was like really little, I used to always say like, "Oh, Dad, can we put the couches together tonight?" And he's like, "All right." So we had those big, those L sectionals that, the big, really long couches that go like that.
Yeah.
So we would push them together, and it would make this giant square. And then I would throw in like 20 stuffed animals and my wrestle buddies.
Yeah.
Because I had a couple of them, and then my sister. And we'd have a rumble. We'd have a Royal Rumble.
Older or younger?
Younger.
Younger?
So
Okay.
we would always throw out all the the whole thing was we would throw away all of the stuffed animals over the top, and then I would like pretend to be getting beat up by them, and then I'd have my sister push me over, but I would do the whole Shawn Michaels
Michaels skin the
95
cat.
gimmick, and I would be skinning the cat and dragon, and I would say, "He's only got 1 foot! It's just a 1 foot!" And then I'd skin up, and then I'd kind of super kick my sister over the top,
Oh, man.
and she'd fall over and then cry, and
And because she's younger,
oh, she was 3 years younger.
she would always lose.
She was like 4.
Yeah. you were a top guy.
Yeah, I was top guy. She was like low card, like superstars at that point.
All right. Well, but she was last in the Rumble over the Bosco the Stuffed Bear.
Yeah, she was getting a
that's not
push.
bad. She was getting a push. Number 1 with a bullet on it. Now, you mentioned your dad. Most people don't know that your father is a huge influence on you and your creativity as a musician. Do you think growing up in that sort of atmosphere helped you in your creativity to move on towards, what you do now?
Of course. Well, besides the fact that I'm also a musician and vocalist, and that was one of the big things that my dad instilled in me. The whole thing with my parents is that they never once questioned my motives or questioned my interests. They were always supportive. So if I said I want to do this, they would just say, "Go and do it. We want you to do it." So it was awesome. Instead of, a lot of people are forced to play sports and stuff. I play, don't get me wrong, like I'm an athlete, I lift, and I've played sports my whole life, but I made
I'm sitting across from a male model right now. The guy's the physique is fantastic. Look at those eyes.
Oh,
Getting
stop.
drawn in.
But I, at one point, I was like, you know what? I prefer to do TV tech stuff. Like in high school, I was like, I choose TV tech over playing baseball or playing this or playing that. So I invested all my time into playing in band and in a band outside of school and in TV tech and doing videos, doing music videos and just filming everything I could and trying to like become better as an editor and just work on random projects, very self-starting, like self-motivating, kind of like my teachers would never like, I always kind of like was able to get out of doing work because for instance, like if there was a project where we had to do some sort of essay, I would say, well, listen, it's me. Do you think I could like write a song and make a music video instead? And then they'd be like, yeah, okay. And then we'd do that, and it would be like way more fun because I'd like write a rap and then rap it and record it and then do a stupid music video.
And it had to be way more fun for the teachers too, because you see like 30 papers from kids, and then you get one that's something interesting and something different. But you probably ruined it for everybody
forget
else.
about it. I had an English professor one time that we did a like acoustic rap song. Me and my guitar player, who was also in my class, and she was like, "You know what, class? Raise your hand if you want to go on tour with Zane and Matt, like throughout the rest of the English classes in the hallway, and they'll perform for the other classes. We'll just kind of like go in, or raise your hand if you want to, go through the rest of the presentations. Everybody
no
else doing a
thanks.
speech. So yeah, of course. So the rest of the hour period, we're going through all the different classrooms and we're playing this stupid song about like 3 hookers. We made it more modern.
Yes,
it was about
yeah.
3 something, and we changed it to hookers in
Yeah.
the street. And I don't know, that would not fly. But like my dad and my mom always supported me, and they always encouraged me to like do that kind of stuff and think out of the box and not be normal. That's my mom always said. She says that's why I named you Zane. Because
Yeah,
you have
she
to live
knew.
up. You have to live up to like a weird kind of
Yeah.
not so normal name. No offense to anybody with a normal baby name. It's
Hi.
nothing wrong with that.
That would be me.
My dad's name is Stephen James Decker.
Ah,
Believe it or not.
not bad.
So
It's great name.
but my mom always said, yeah, well, we named you that, and you had to kind of do something to live up to it.
you were
You have
either-
to look like a Zane. You got to be like what a Zane would be like. And we don't know what that is yet, but you'll figure it out.
There's only one you. You were either going to be artistic or crazy. Who knew you'd be both?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's same way. Now, how did you build an aesthetic? For those of you who don't know, all of the visual, everything you see on Capital Wrestling Television, which you can catch every Monday, 7:05, twitch.tv/Capital Wrestling. Also, our anniversary show, March 24th, 301 Garden Street. Everything you see that comes through the lens is touched, shot, edited, and produced by Zane Decker. Now, when you're doing this, is there an aesthetic that you had in mind when you started? Was it something that Matt and Marcus had approached you like, hey, we sort of want it to look like this? Where did the process start?
Well, from my understanding, I was sitting like in Atlantic City with my dad, like smoking a cigar, chilling out, and it was just like this was like 2 days before I left for Australia,
Which we'll
like
get to,
a
yeah.
week before, something like that. And then I just kept seeing Matt Ryan post, Capital Wrestling logo, and I'm like, okay, like what's this?
What does that mean?
And I was just like interested, and because I was leaving for what I thought would be a year, I was a little nervous about where I would be when I came back. Like, would I have a promotion to come to? Would I be forgotten about? Would all of the work and reputation I guess I built or thought I built, would it be gone and no one would really remember or care?
And then you would have to start over from scratch.
Yeah, and I was worried about that. It's like when you're a worker and you get injured, and then you're out for a year. When you come back, do people even want to book you anymore? Do they even care about having on your show? Did someone else take your spot? Who knows? Maybe there was another video guy that came along and that they were like, hey, this guy's really good, man. He's the guy.
He's the guy.
So I messaged Matt and I said, listen, like I'm going to be away, but I could edit stuff. So
And that's how it began.
How it happened. And, I couldn't. It was tough because being over there and you get hundreds of files and you have no idea what they are.
And when you're awake, everyone else is asleep.
Yeah.
And
But to Matt's credit, he would respond at the wackiest of hours, man. I really do got to give him a lot of credit for that. I do.
Yeah.
He'd be very responsive.
Now, when you started putting together, like, as we transitioned away from the original sort of product that we had, and you started making the lower thirds and making it more neon, was that a conscious choice of something that you always wanted to do but you didn't have time when you were in Australia?
So the first couple months, it was honestly just like, all right, let's throw this together as good as we can with the time we have.
Because your export time was
Oh,
ridiculous.
it's like an hour to export that show minimum, and then you have an 8 to 9 hour upload time to Google Drive.
True.
So I would have to plan this ahead of time. Like I would have to figure this out. Like I'd have to go somewhere else, like whether it was an office or someone else's place, and like say, all right, we're leaving this here overnight. Like it can't be any interruptions. No one can disturb it. So it was a big thing. But when I started to have a little bit more time, weeks before I moved back, and then when I did get back, I started to implement more interesting motion graphics. And I'm not a graphic guy. I can't design from scratch, so I use a lot of templates from motionarray.com and different websites that are very helpful. So I could use templates and I could manipulate them. So the one good thing I can do with graphics is manipulate them in post and not make them from scratch, but that's okay because most of these, WWE is using templates as well. And that's okay. As long as it fits the look you want, good. That's why they're there.
People make a ton of money, doing that in
It's a whole separate
video
thing,
firms.
man. It's a whole separate thing. So I just took the idea with those, I saw those neon thirds, and I was like, you know what? Like, the whole look we're going for is like, modern wrestling for, what is it? It's classic wrestling for the modern fan. And when that it triggers me to think of those old, like, neon lights and like whether it's like Glow or like the old WCW Saturday Night logo,
even to what you talked about before, the neon WWF.
Yes, which is my favorite entrance of all time. I prefer that entrance to WrestleMania 34 entrance, which will be coming up in a few weeks. Like, whatever it is, like, that wins still to me.
So classy and clean.
It just is so clean. It's awesome. But so those neon lights they're such a visual aid. And I thought, well, no one else is doing that look right now. Like, I'm trying to think, what Ring of Honor does. And I think their production looks beautiful. And then I think of all these other independent promotions in the area and what their look is. You think of places like Lucha Underground and what their look is. They're a totally different thing. Because you can't compete with someone that is so like WWE. They're so stocked with
they're Disney.
They're Disney, and we're not looking to compete. We're looking to offer an alternative. So what can be an alternative aesthetic and look? So I thought more film cinematic look in the ring with the neon lower thirds and different graphics, and just kind of like packaging it to make it seem a little bit more less indie wrestling and more produced in a way that
a television product. We're not an indie company. We're a television
exactly.
show.
And I gotta say, one of the nicest compliments I got from an individual named Bobby. I won't give his last name, as I don't know if he wants it even said on here. But in Rhode Island, when I was filming for XWA, he told me that he's an announcer, a ring announcer, and he said, "Hey, I see what you do when you come here, and you're having the guys work the camera." Like, you're making them work for it. You're running around, getting those tight close-up shots. I see what you're doing. Not many other people do that, like, at this level, and I appreciate that because that's helping them. And it's cool.
It's details, and it makes everybody
look
better.
That made me feel great. That was such a great compliment, and that's one of the things I strive for. Is I'm not just holding a camcorder up in the air. I don't leave my lens on autofocus. It's pretty evident if you watch. I keep it on manual because I want to snap zoom and then rack focus into whatever's there, and then maybe pull focus for something else. Like, I don't like to let the camera completely manipulate what I want.
You're deciding.
Sometimes it's okay to be out of focus for a second. It's real life.
Yeah.
Wrestler
it's less sterile.
Yeah, he gets kicked in the face. He's probably seeing blurry for a second. So why can't the camera?
Yeah, it's a fair point.
It's something different, and I feel like sometimes on the independent scene we think as long as it's filmed, it's fine.
Which is not the case.
Which, some people don't have the opportunity to do what we do, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We're very blessed to have the environment that we have to film in. I'm very thankful for the opportunity that I've been given, and I'm trying to just make the most out of it. But what we're trying to do is different. It takes more time. It's packaging, and it's getting things right.
And it's not only just filming the action in the ring. It's, pre-tapes, all the things, the promos that you do with the guys, pre-tapes or post. Go through that process for us, because I know, I've been at events with you, and it's kind of a pain, and it's very, both of us, if people from the outside will see, I'm just a play-by-play guy, and I'm using air quotes, and you're just a guy who points a camera at something or edits. That's not the case. I've seen you steam coming out of your head because it's a frustrating thing to just get all those pieces. It's a lot that goes on. Take me through your process when you first get to the building. From building to end of show, what do you go through?
Man, usually at these things, we're within the first 5 there, last 5 to leave. That's kind of what it is. And that's cool. That's okay. I love it.
Yeah.
So I'll get there at a regular show day for Capitol, we're talking.
Yes.
I'll get there at 1 p.m., maybe 1:30, load all my gear in, start to set up the backdrop, set up one or two cameras, just as like I have a second one as a backup just in case, and I put that on a tripod and let it sit. Set the whole charging station up, get all of the lighting, my lights set up. I use that as a backup because James McAvoy, he does the lighting for the pre-tapes.
Shout out to him.
Shout out to him, who's fantastic, and his girlfriend, Deanna, who's fantastic as well. Both of them are great to work with, and if you ever need anybody to light your show or light anything, hit them up. So if they can't make it or they're running late, I'll set up my lights as a backdrop, as a backup, just in case. And then it's just kind of like wrangling talent. These guys, guys run late. Guys travel from very far.
They're doing double shots. They might not be there until later.
So I get frustrated sometimes, but then I have to remember, okay, they have a lot on their plate, and so do we. So we got to meet in the middle.
And you're not the only company.
Yes,
exactly. Capital Wrestling isn't the only place that independent wrestlers are working.
Yeah, they got so much other going on. Yeah, so then we get all the pre-tape segments that they're pre-written, or they're at least the general idea is there, and we kind of have to just debrief them on it, and kind of just produce them and direct them a little bit. I like to shoot certain guys certain ways. So if you watch a Matt McIntosh promo, they all look the same. They don't sound the same, but they look the same. That's on me.
Very tight at the beginning, yeah.
Tight with a small Dutch tilt on his like his left side or whatever. And then he turns in. I think he's money. Matt McIntosh, I think he's phenomenal. And
Matt McIntosh, of course, will be in the main event against the Concrete Rose Sonny Kiss. Capital Wrestling.
Lovely. I love Sonny Kiss. One of my favorites.
Capital Wrestling Anniversary, March 24th, 301 Garden Street in Hoboken, New Jersey. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I continue my conversation with the one, the only, Zane Decker.
Capital Wrestling fans, show your Capital pride by wearing official Capital Wrestling merchandise. Whether it be hats, hoodies, t-shirts, or onesies, we've got you covered for all seasons. Support us online at ProWrestlingTees.com, Amazon.com, WhatAmaneuver.net, and CapitalWrestling.BigCartel.com. Capital Wrestling, old school wrestling for the modern fan.
All right, we're back here on the Stephen James Experience. I'm sitting with a good friend, jack of all trades, master of all of them, and quite a handsome guy. It's making me a little bit insecure. Mr. Zane Decker, welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much, Steve.
So before we went, we were talking about the aesthetic and the process that you go through throughout the day at Capital Wrestling. You talked about, your setup and building everything out, and go through some of your, because you don't do it alone. It takes a village.
Of course.
So why don't you talk a little bit about your team and how you a lot of times I've seen you just pluck people, like you're mine now. They do something with you once, they get sent to you, and you're just like, I noticed this, you can do this, you're mine now.
Yeah, so we've kind of developed now a little crew. So the other camera operator is Danny Walsh, who does great work. He's a really great guy, and he just loves to be there. He loves wrestling. He's just excellent to have, and he's always willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done, and he's an excellent hand to have, and shout out to Danny. The other guy we got now is Matt
Koffler.
Matt Koffler. Yeah. His last name is because we have Matt
Kaufman.
We have all these cough somethings. So Matt Koffler is he's a student in college, and we use him as the hard cam, and he's also head audio in the pre-tape area, and that kid is money too. He's great. He's one of the ones that was there one time, and then as like a, let's do this. It could be an internship thing, and I'm like, all right, listen, like this, he's got to come back every show, and he's with me. He's attached to my.
This is my guy.
This is how it is now. so that was that, and then I brought in my one of my fraternity brothers actually, who's helping now. His name's Miles. So he's going to be doing a lot of dolly camera operating, and he was working slate, so he's assistant camera. So all these guys, the last show was the best in terms of pre-tape production, because we had Miles on slate, we had Matt working audio, and then we had Danny boom operating, and then me camera and directing. That's what it should be.
Yeah, every time.
4 guys doing that, perfect.
It's a lot that goes into just one shot.
Brother, I mean, at the show 3 months ago, I was holding slate and camera, and then Matt was holding boom and the audio all at the same time. So man, it's brutal. And then we're also trying to like get people's attention.
And not only that, you have a brief window in order to do that before the show starts, because guess what? All of those people are also shooting the live show.
We got about an hour and a half to cram in like 30 pre-tapes. That's the maximum I've ever I think the most I ever did was like 26.
And that's a lot.
And that's a lot. But it even though you get there so early, the guys get there like, let's just say 5, and then you got to be down there by like 7 o'clock to get ready for the Twitch the Twitch stream. So
we start with match 0 and then into the live event.
So it ain't easy.
Oh, but you just hold a video camera.
Yeah, but it's cool. Listen, I'm blessed to have the opportunity. I love doing it, and if that's what people see it as, then it's just my job to make them change their minds.
Read the credits
with a smile on my face.
Read the credits. You'll know.
Kill them with kindness, man.
I do a lot of things. I'm less kind than you. I'm a little bit more ego driven than that, and that's something I have to learn to get over. But you briefly touched on before, going to Australia and stuff like that. What was that like? That was, from the outside, at least when you mentioned it to me, it seemed like you were taking a risk. You were trying something different. What facilitated you going to Australia? What was your experience like there?
Well, one of my best friends in college, he's from Australia, from Queensland, from the Gold Coast. So it's like the one of the prettiest areas. The beaches, everything is just pretty over there. And after he got kicked out of the country because the student visa thing, he stayed a long time. He stayed a long time. He got out. He went, was like, yeah, you're right. I should get out. He left willingly, and then after I finished my master's degree, I was like, you know what?
Master's in
media management. I have an MBA, and I graduated in 2016 from Wagner College. So after I finished that, his family said, you know what, come out here, you could work for us and we'll give you a place to live, and they're super generous and some of the most kind people you'll ever meet. And
what capacity were you working for them with?
So they owned a coffee plantation and a few cafes. And when I mean coffee plantation, I mean had 700 trees that grew coffee cherries that would need to be picked and then processed and then roasted and then bagged up and sold wholesale or at the cafe. So it was the whole process. So I was meant to be doing video, social media management, photography, marketing stuff, and I gave tours too. But that was my shoot gig.
That's what started it.
So while I was out there, I got involved with wrestling because I can't stay away, man. You can't keep me out, man. I got to find a way. So luckily, in December of 2016, right before I moved, I met Ken Anderson, and we were out at a diner after a show, and he was there with his girlfriend, and I overheard them talking about how she was Australian, and I said, "Wow, I'm about to move to Australia." And she was asking me where, and I said, "Queensland." And then Kennedy was like, "Dude, I have a show out there in literally a month and a half. Let's meet up. I'll introduce you to the people that I'm working with.
That's
and
crazy.
Get you in." And I was like, "Dude, you're the man. That's awesome." So I was looking forward to that, and it all worked out. Usually, things I plan or people bail on me or people flake. He didn't, and that was so cool that he did that for me. So I walked in and I met all these new Australian guys at this promotion called Venom Pro Wrestling. It was in Yatala, Australia, in Queensland. And they ran out of a showman's club, I think it's called, the Yatala Showman's Club, right by Yatala Pies, which is meat pies, which is a big thing over there.
That's a big thing over there?
Huge.
So is that is that their equivalent of a dirty water dog or going to get pizza?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that show was pretty cool. I just walked in. He was hanging out at the bar, and I walked in. I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And then he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then he brought me in and introduced me to the promoter. And then they all immediately thought I was legit because I was with Ken.
You were co-signed by him.
That's not even what I meant to have happen. I just
was just showing up.
I was just trying to get my foot in the door and shake some hands and meet people and see if I could have an opportunity to help out. but it just kind of like made me look like this. He's from New York. He's one of those guys. Like,
look at this American coming in here. Yeah.
So everyone was super kind, and the promoter invited us like to his house afterwards, and everybody was there, like having a good time. And because of that, like I just exchanged a bunch of numbers, got a lot of contacts, and then through them, I met this guy Jesse Moon, who is the promoter at Grindhouse Australian Wrestling Alliance. So that promotion's wild, man. I always told him, I was like, this is my favorite indie promotion in the world.
Why is that?
It was at this place called the New Globe Theater, which is shutting down in a month. It's like they're closing it, and now they have to find a new venue. But it's a theater, so it's theater seats, and then at the bottom is the wrestling ring, and it's
like in
on
a
a
bowl.
stage.
Oh wow!
So it's only looking down. There's no side seats. There's no it's not completely 360. It's just watching. And then they had a giant screen, like a theater screen, behind the ring, and that's where the entrance videos that I would make would play. And then these guys, this was like rowdy. Like this was like the epitome of when you think of
it's like a rugby match,
wrestling. A wrestling show that is just like. The crowd says what they think, and then the wrestler doesn't care. He'll say what he thinks, and then people shove or people have to be it's
separated.
Wild, man. There's some of these wrestlers would be in the middle of their match and take a beer and drink beer and throw it. These guys are wild, and they're super entertaining, and it's just I don't know. People would go to this one venue. They would go out before they went out to the bars at night. So this was in the red light district of Brisbane. It was called the Valley, Fortitude Valley.
Fortitude Valley.
So it would be grindy in the Valley.
Grindy in the Fortitude Valley.
So yeah, everybody would show up. It would on a good show, maybe 150 people, 100 people, not. For a crowd in Queensland, that's amazing because Queensland wrestling scene at the time was struggling.
I was going to say a lot of people don't. I wouldn't have realized that there was a vibrant scene in Australia.
Well, here's the thing: is it wasn't in Queensland.
It's all because of you.
But yeah, right.
Brought that New York swagger in.
Well, I did. I did play a role in being a help because they didn't have a lot of representation. And I was afforded the opportunity of right place, right time, right people needed my help, and I needed them. And it was awesome to be able to film them, make highlight reels, make shows, put it up online, and then people were seeing them. And now in Queensland, they just had Will Ospreay come and do a show with Venom Pro. And yeah, Will Ospreay just wrestled in the main event with them. And Mr. Juicy Gino Gambino was there too, and he's a Melbourne City wrestling guy. But now he's with New Japan. And he was just in the New Japan Rumble. Wow. So in Melbourne, it's hot right now. Mikey J, who is the promoter and head video guy, the man is amazing. He's so talented. And he does MCW, Melbourne City Wrestling. And I met him at a House of Hardcore show as I was filming. I got an opportunity to just be camera operator. And he was a camera operator too. And he invited me out to MCW. And he was like, yeah, I'm the promoter there. Come for a show. We're having Will Ospreay wrestle Robbie Eagles and this other guy his name is escaping me right now, but he was excellent. For it was a 3-way for 2 titles on the line, PWA title and MCW title maybe. But yeah, so I went out to the show and I flew out there and I got to film it, and I just realized whoa, there are so many undiscovered people from MCW, and that's where the TM61 is from. Yeah. The Mighty Don't Kneel. That group is from MCW. That's where it started. There's this other guy named Jonah Rock who's there, who's unreal. I know he wrestled Zack Sabre Jr. in maybe PWG for something. That guy's awesome. Robbie Eagles is dope. He is sick. And a couple other guys too, that I'm quality of wrestling out there. I met this guy named Davis Passfield who wrestles by Mark Davis. And I did a highlight reel for him right before he moved to the UK, and now he's doing stuff with Rev Pro, and I think he was on a What Culture show, and he's in Aussie Open, which is that's the tag team they're called, and they're killing it. He relocated his whole life to go out there, and just a lot of these guys out there, they're so passionate about what they do, and they're just they were so nice to me. Like, these guys were just so welcoming. It was so awesome.
So when you transitioned back, what facilitated the transition back home? You were ready, you had conquered Australia, you were ready to get back into the American independent scene and take it over?
My best friend back home got engaged while I was away, and he planned his wedding for October. And I was the best man. So I was like, well, I got to be back. So I booked the flight, and I headed back, and I came back about 3 months earlier than expected, but it was for a really good reason, so I was okay with it.
I will say, from a personal perspective, having worked with Capital Wrestling since day one, having you over there working and having you here working is night and day. Being able to have hands on the product as you have now, more say in when you're there, getting the shots, you're there, augmenting your team, you're there directing what you are. It made the product a million times better.
I appreciate that.
It makes me able to invest more in the product as well, because I see where we're going, at least visually and the mood-wise that you've set. So for that, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about and you're hearing about Capital Wrestling for the first time, I'm doing a disservice in my job because I don't shut up about it. But if you want me to shut up about it, the best way you can do that is by coming March 24th to Capital Wrestling's anniversary, 301 Garden Street in Hoboken, New Jersey. Gotta come.
Check it out. I mean, a lot of people work very hard on this.
Yes.
Wrestlers, producers, writers, everybody. This is a passion project, to say the least, and we're all trying real hard.
We're very passionate about it.
And you know what? Like, if you're watching WWE, but you have a buddy that's on Capitol, watch Capitol too, man. Support your friends.
Yeah.
Support your friends, and support an industry that you love. And if you don't like it, that's cool, man. Because I don't like everything I watch either.
if you don't like it, but you love me, leave it on in the background.
Yeah, just let
mute
it be. Listen, some episodes are like 5 minutes, and then others are 40. So, like, just let them ride on a playlist and clean your house, clean your room. Like, just listen to the beautiful voice of Stephen James and Harry Turjanian.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to Harry Turjanian. Just listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that is very near and dear to your heart, and something that I learned about you in an amazing car ride home that we had, where I feel that we got a little bit closer, is your faith. Faith is something that's very important to you. It's something that a lot of people might not necessarily know about you. How important is your faith in terms of when you're working, how you treat people, the business of wrestling? How does your faith intersect with that?
I'm probably, you always hear, oh, he was too nice of a guy to be in wrestling. He's not going to cut it. I'm probably too nice, but I want to make it. At least I think I'm a nice guy.
It depends. It depends. 9 times out of 10, you're a nice guy. But that 10th time, if someone's standing in your shot and you need to get it, or a talent's not being wrangled, you could put a little mustard on your voice.
And if that's 9 out of 10, that's perfect, because you have to have that little bit of edge. Basically, like, I mean, I try my best. Listen, like, no matter what, at the end of the day, we're human beings and we make mistakes. It doesn't matter what our past is, our future is, whatever. We're going to make mistakes, and it's all about right there, boom. And it's all about our reaction to them. And sometimes my reaction can be good, sometimes it can be bad. But you have to have a level of self-reflectiveness where you could take a step back and just review your performance in general as a human being and be like, you know what, I could handle that differently. Or maybe next time I'm going to bite my tongue and I'm not going to say that. It's just how you treat people, and it's the golden rule. It's the golden rule. Treat others how you'd want to be treated, or do unto others how you would have them do unto you. You know, and
Steve Austin had that shirt.
Yeah, you're right. DTA. That's another thing.
That's fair.
I try to trust people. I give them the benefit of the doubt, and
until
sometimes it has proven to be a big character flaw, I guess, in my life.
I'll disagree with you as far as a character. It's who you are, and that's something that I like about you. Sure, it doesn't always
that.
It doesn't always work out.
It doesn't work out a lot, but you know what? I do really trust people, and I give people the benefit of the doubt, even though other people won't. And I believe people.
Now, was faith something that was always important to you, or is it something that you stumbled upon or found later in life where you led there, or is it something that you always felt inside you that just happened to manifest later in life?
Yeah, this was definitely a lifestyle that I didn't choose later on. It happened when I was little. I mean, I've always gone to church, Christian, not Catholicism, or I went to a Baptist church growing up.
Oh, okay.
But I don't really consider myself any one denomination. I just know that I believe that Jesus died on the cross for my sins, and if I accept Jesus as my personal savior, I'll go to heaven. And it doesn't matter what denomination you are. that's what it is for me. So shout out to Jesus. Praise God. So being little, we went to church, and then my parents pulled me from public school and put me in private school, which I was very against. I was so nervous because I was like, I don't want to go to this thing, man. I know this is going to sound like really, really warped and weird, but like this church was great. It was super like old school Southern church. And at the church, they had a school, and it was downstairs, and it was like, big, open, wide, like everybody had notebooks. Like they were called paces, and there was no classrooms. There were cubicles, like offices, and you would work by yourself throughout the day. If you needed help, you'd put in a little flag in your cubicle,
and
a teacher would come. But it was no classes. There were only 20. There were 30 kids in the school. That's it. And it was all.
And this is elementary school.
This is K through 12.
K through 12.
So I went to a school with as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old with 17-year-olds, and that's who I was playing dodgeball with, man. So that's why I say, listen, I will wreck anyone in dodgeball, 1-on-1, 2-on-1. I don't care what it is, but if you want to go, let's go.
All right, the open challenge,
open dodgeball challenge, baby.
Capital wrestling.
You have to learn how to defend yourself against 17-year-olds, But that was great until they pulled me out, and then I didn't want to leave, but they were like, listen, you've outgrown this place. We need to put you in a public school where you could, be a light, or at least try to.
Yeah.
So I went back to public school right where I left. And
was that transition hard for you?
Yeah, because I thought, this was I went away in 99 to 2000. So I went back to public school in early 2001, right before September 11th. So I started that 2 weeks before that. So it was weird because in those 2 years, that's when NSYNC and Backstreet Boys were huge, and all the pop culture that 90s kids love, and I was totally out of the loop because
you didn't know.
We didn't do anything with that. Yeah. So I was only into wrestling, but old wrestling, because I wasn't allowed to watch Attitude Era at the time. So I was still watching WrestleMania 10 and Royal Rumble 94 on friggin' loop. I swear.
Hence why Bret Hart is your favorite.
Absolutely. He's my hero. And yeah, man, he's but I always say, and I know this is the character Bret I'm talking about, not the human being, because I know people say he's this, that, whatever. But the character always stood for, he did what was right. He did what he thought was right, no matter what. And he stood up for what he believed in and defended who he believed in. And he wanted to
be very noble.
Noble. His character was just a noble dude. And I always, I got asked this one question. I was on a job interview once, and the guy was into wrestling. He said it was a long interview. I had to interview with 6 people throughout the day. It was for my graduate assistant position at Wagner. And he said, yo, man, if you can compare yourself, this interview process to one wrestling pay-per-view, what would you say? And I said, King of the Ring 1993, man. Because that always struck me. I'm dude, Bret, first match against Razor Ramon, boom, hurt his fingers. Second match, it was the whole your dad never beat my dad. Your dad couldn't beat my dad on his best day. Yeah. And then he's perfect. And then he overcame that in my favorite match ever. Second, probably, to a couple other ones.
So at the end of the interview, did Lawler come out and?
Yeah, actually, this guy dressed up. The mascot came out and beat me to a pulp with
with a crutch.
With a crutch. Yeah, but so overall, that character kind of helped me growing up, being listen, I might be in this new area, this new place, but that's how I used wrestling. Was I always was so fixated on this character of this good guy, this hero, this dude who stood up for everything that was right. and even if people question him, he said, you know what, this is what I believe. Yeah. And if you have a problem with that, take it up with me.
Even when he turned heel,
yeah,
he still had that set of morals and that belief. It's just he augmented them. Okay, I'm quote unquote anti-American because these beliefs that I've always held are not in line with where America is trending.
Which was brilliant.
Which absolutely
brilliant.
I'm a big Bret Hart fan. I always get into an argument with my friend Dave that, you know, I prefer Shawn Michaels. And it's always Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels in the conversation.
Yeah.
But 97 Bret Hart is one of the best characters in the history of professional wrestling as a whole. So, yeah, I can appreciate that. So wrestling was something that bonded you and helped you transition in periods like that. Because you can always find, and not a lot of people will say that they're wrestling fans, but there's always one of us. We're always somewhere. If you seek us out, and if you like the same things in wrestling, you tend to...
It's like finding a... not to get political, but it's like when you find... if you're a Donald Trump fan and you find someone else who's a Donald Trump fan, it finally opens the floodgates and you guys can like talk openly about how you feel instead of being reserved.
Instead of waiting.
I just see that around. They're like, oh, so you like this? Oh, you like... It's like, oh, you like wrestling? Like, who's your... Oh, wow. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then you're like,
starts,
boom. Yeah, it's like, you know, something that's like not viewed as cool or... But that's... Yeah, that's what happened when I left school. But when I went back in there, like, it was tough. But my faith is carried through, and it's tough because as a Christian, you have a walk with God, and sometimes it falters, and sometimes you struggle, and sometimes you're distant, and then other times you're super close. And that matters to being in the Scripture, being around a Christian community, whether you're in a youth group or you're in a church environment where you're going every Sunday. Like, I've played in worship bands at church. I've been in youth group growing up, and going away to college was tough because then you're not involved in that all the time unless you could find a church. And I've sought them out, and it never clicked, and I kind of wavered a bit, and it was hard. But right now in my life, I feel like I'm drawing closer to God, and I'm feeling really good about where I'm at right now. And sometimes when you go through things in life and you're in a certain kind of position where you're feeling like the world is just dragging you down, who's your number one? Who are you going to look to? Sometimes your best friend's not there. Sometimes the people that you always thought were going to be there, they're not there. But who could you always turn to? God. God's my number one, and I'm his number one. I know he's got a lot of number ones, but but in my heart, I'm his number one.
He's always riding shotgun in the car.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now, and I hope that reflects through the way I handle situations. And some people might not understand everything that I do and why I do them, but at the end of the day, if you want to know, you just ask me, and I'd love to talk about it, and I'd love to share the Word of God with you as best as I can. Because listen, I'm learning. And it's a constant. It's the whole your whole life you're learning, and you're making mistakes, and you're learning from your mistakes, and you're trying to better yourself. So I'm never gonna be Mr. Perfect over here, but I'm trying my best, and that's what it is.
All right, I've been before we go, because we're just about out of time. 5-year goal, 10-year goal, 5 and 10-year goal. Where do you see yourself? Where do you see Zane Decker, director extraordinaire? What is the perfect outcome for you?
WWE, without a doubt. That's been the goal since I was like 10. I had 3 goals in life. It was either like be like a touring musician, which is still on the table. Like that could happen. At any time, really. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go.
If you're a band looking for a bassist, let me know. I'm ready to go, man. Wrestle, which I did for a few months, background. And that was enough. That was enough for me. I did it, and did it for a few months, and I trained, and I was just really thankful for the opportunity, and I had a lot of fun. I don't, who knows? Maybe one day again, but not right now. I got other things that I wanna focus on, which is production, and that was the other goal, was be some sort of producer in WWE. And try to combine all of my loves in one thing. And if I could, in 5 years, if I could work for the company in some sort of capacity, that would just be the greatest gift from God, man. That would be awesome.
Well, let's hope from your lips to God's ears, as they say. I've been joined by friend, above all else, a friend, someone whose personality and whose morals have been tantamount to, just one of the greatest guys I know. A guy who I would trust with my own children, a guy who I would trust with my family, a guy who I would trust with my money, somebody who I trust, a man who I respect. And if you want to see his work, Mr. Zane Decker, come out. Capital Wrestling Anniversary, March 24th, 301 Garden Street, or check out every Monday night, 7:05, twitch.tv/Capital Wrestling. Or now we're on TV in Queens for all of you folks out in Queens. Friday, 11 p.m. at QPTV. On QPTV, that's Channel 35 on Fios, 83 on Spectrum, and I can't remember the other one. But not bad for even remembering those. All right, we're getting out of here.